Okay, welcome back to Powerful. My name is Jeff Coulard, and today I'm going to want to talk about the four A's of behavior change or change in general. And so the topic of this broadcast, it's replacing the podcast, is to talk about power and how power shows up in our lives and the intersection of power with the experiences that we have with other people and their power with institutions, with society at large. And one of the things that I find a lot of in my coaching practice and when I'm working with teams is a sense of stuckness, a sense of, we have a future desired state. We have something that we want to work towards. And for some reason, we just can't get past the own inertia that we have and the hold that the status quo tends to have on us. And so this little framework, the four A's, is something that I put together a few years ago after about a dozen years of working in addiction and mental health and watching the journey that people go through when when they're trying to change something as dramatic as stopping drug use or stopping drinking or stopping a range of behaviors that we would classify as pretty tough behaviors to change. When we look at addiction, it's kind of the most stuck I think that people can be in their life is in the throes of addiction or mental health. And so these four A's, awareness, alignment, action, and accountability, have become, I guess, a framework, some handrails for me as I think about change in my own life and as I help other people go through change in theirs. And today I really wanted to break down the first of those, which is a sense of awareness, and talk a little bit about what it is we should be aware of or what's most helpful to be aware of, because sometimes we say awareness and we don't actually know what we're talking about. I know lots of people that have tried to pick up a meditation practice over the years and they just sit for 15 or 20 minutes and they think thoughts, and doesn't actually lead to change, doesn't lead to anything being that different, except they've had 15 or 20 minutes to sit and think about their thoughts. But they still find themselves stuck in a set of behaviors or a set of circumstances that they want to get out of. And so I guess the first one, let's maybe talk a little bit about what I'm not talking about when I'm talking about awareness. I'm not talking about our thoughts. For anybody who's actually sat back and looked at your thoughts or thought about your thoughts, had some reflection and just watched thoughts come and go out of our mind, we realize that it's basically just a herd of cats in there, a very chaotic environment that our thoughts are. Our thoughts are constantly changing and they're constantly flitting from one thing to the next as we remember our to-do list that we've got, things we want to do, things we've done, and experiences we've had, and we have thoughts just all the time. Right, we're kind of constantly thoughts racing through our mind, and those that doesn't isn't the same as being aware. So our thoughts in and of themselves aren't awareness. And a very specific type of thought is a judgment, right? Judging something as good or bad or right or wrong or helpful or unhelpful. That's not really the type of awareness that we're after either. Judgments actually usually aren't that helpful, because they get us to rigidify, right? We say something is good or bad, and it kind of justifies either a status quo course of action or us using our power to fix that. And this whole cycle of awareness and alignment and action and accountability is not about fixing broken things or fixing problems. It's about pursuing what's most meaningful to us. And so judgments, I find when I make them, they tend to keep me stuck and actually don't give me a lot of, what to do next, a bit of that insight. And so what type of awareness do I think are most helpful, or what does the research show is most helpful in my experience working with, like I said, with addiction over the past number of years? Well, there's two. The first one is awareness of our feelings and our emotions, right? They're the same thing, but some people connect better to your feelings versus emotions. And it turns out that most of us, don't have a ton of emotional literacy. I know that I certainly don't have a ton of emotional literacy. It's something that I'm always working on. But sometimes it's hard to tell, is this frustration or is this anger, right? Is this anger or is this sadness? Is this sadness or is this fear? And knowing the difference is really helpful, right? Because our emotions are basically just signposts. They're a flag that says, hey, you care about something, right? What is it that you care about? And that's the next step of alignment, is using our emotions or our feelings to figure out what it is we care most about so that we can then take meaningful action. All right. So awareness of our emotions, not judging them as good or bad. I know lots of people, and I get into it myself, where I'll have an emotion and then I'll feel guilt about that emotion or shame about that emotion. Right. And so it's not feelings about feelings, that kind of loop. that we can get ourselves in. It's actually just acknowledgement and awareness. So that like embodied awareness of, wow, I'm stressed out, and that stress is coming from a place of fear, right? Being able to say, this is fear that is driving my behavior or driving my action or inaction is really important. Okay. So ultimately, I think it's really, really helpful. And it's been really helpful for the people that I've worked with over the years to get better at emotional literacy, right? To understand kind of emotional awareness. Um, Another thing we can be aware of are our behaviors. So the things that we're actually doing or the things that we're not doing, right? Didn't go for a run today. I went for a run yesterday. Just that awareness, right, is the first step. I'm not going to judge that as good or bad. Again, this isn't to feed into our judgments about the things that we're doing or not doing. It's just to be super clear about it, right? What are the actions I'm actually taking, and what are the things I'm not doing? Because those also indicate what I care about, right? So when we get to alignment, when we want to align ourselves, our behaviors and our words and our thoughts and our feelings, we want those to be lined up with the things that we care most about. It's really important to know, be able to have some objective truth about our own behaviors and our own actions, again, or inactions. Okay. So that's awareness in a nutshell. It's not our thoughts and it's not our judgments about things as good or bad. It's awareness of our emotional state, right? So, what are the actual emotions? And if we can recognize them when we're having them and then put a name to them, it's really helpful. And our behaviors, the things that we're doing or not doing. Okay. I'll We'll fire this up again in a couple of days or next week, and we'll talk about the practice of alignment. So, once we're aware of these things, once we know what emotions we're feeling or what we're doing or not doing, how do we line that up with what we care about? Right. And we'll talk about values, and we'll talk about what's most meaningful to us in a little bit. So, thanks so much if you tuned in live. Awesome. If you're catching this as a replay, that's great too. You can always go to www.jeffcoolard.com, /podcast, or you can click the listen to the podcast link. There's about 30 episodes of more audio. This is an experiment of live broadcasting with video. And so let me know what you think of this in the comments, and we'll talk to you very soon.